Hello there, my name is Anna Parker Naples, and I'm absolutely delighted to come in and do this guest expert training for you in the Money Circle, all about imposter syndrome. So the reason that we're talking about this is that imposter syndrome has become the term that's most commonly known for that feeling when you think you're a bit of a fraud, no matter how successful you are, no matter how good you are in your subject or your field. And also not just for business, in personal life as well, how imposter syndrome and this fear about not being good enough stops you taking actions that would actually help to improve your life. So imposter syndrome for the last couple of years has just kind of become a term that everyone's seeing and hearing. So what really is it? Imposter syndrome is what holds you back from doing the things you want to do, from taking the action you want to do to have more success in your life, to achieve more in your life, to be seen, to be heard, to be remembered, whether that's on a personal level or on a business level where you want to get yourself out there and noticed. Commonly, imposter syndrome is something that is experienced by real high achievers as well. So this is not something that is just an issue for people who are just starting out in a particular area. This is something that almost everybody has to some degree. And there's a reason for that. And it's because we really have this innate fear of being judged, being criticised, and being rejected. And I'll come to those again in a few moments. But first, what I want you to just understand is a little analogy about how I see the mind working. So imposter syndrome comes from that inner critic voice that we hear. And I think we all know what that voice is. We all know that it's what's telling us that we can't do things, that we can't step up into what we want to do, maybe that we don't belong, that we're not good enough. Often that inner critic actually sounds like someone from our past, or maybe it's a relative or an old teacher, or it has characteristics of that person, or it is a caricature of something from your past. Often we're not necessarily aware that that's what it is until we drill down and really stop to think about, what does that voice sound like? What does it remind me of? And that's some of the work that I do through neuro-linguistic programming and timeline therapy, which I'm not going to go into too much detail about today, except that what I do want you to understand is that the inner critic is just one small part of you, and it's not necessarily telling you the truth. And one of the things I really want you to take from this training today is to realize that because that is not the truth, there is another truth about you, which is that you are capable, that you do deserve to have the success that you want, that you do belong, and that you don't have to be scared. So in terms of this analogy I want to share with you, your subconscious mind is responsible for everything that goes on in your body. It's responsible for all of your functions, everything you eat, everything you digest, how you sleep. It's responsible for how you view the world, and it's responsible for how you interpret everything around you. Now, in our everyday lives, for every single second that we experience, there are approximately 2 million pieces of potential information that we are given that is around us. So for example, for me right now, I could take from those 2 million pieces of information the wobble of this chair as I'm talking. I could be aware of various strands of hair that are on my neck. I could be really aware of what's in my periphery vision. I could, for example, right now I can see there's a yellow book over there, and I can be aware of that. I could be aware of the individual light strands that are coming towards me from my spotlight as I talk. There are 2 million pieces of information that are sight, that you are seeing, that you are feeling. So that's the kinesthetic, the sense of touch, not only on the outside of your body, what you're actually physically touching, but how your body is feeling internally as well. There is what you hear. So the sounds around me. So for example, I can right now, if I think about it, I can really focus on the fact that there is a slight hum coming from my computer. I can also then listen to the fact that there is a bird outside, and somewhere up the street there is a rubbish truck. It's a long distance away, but if my mind decides to go there, that's what I can focus on. Now the interesting thing is, I've missed a couple there. So there's also your sense of smell, which we know is very evocative, isn't it? Something that we smell, particularly a perfume, can really take us back to a particular place. And that's because of how your memory is stored and how your subconscious mind works. And then the other thing is taste. So again, certain tastes take us back. We recall things through taste. And that can even be what the air tastes like around us. Our brain is phenomenal in how it stores things. So I think of my brain as like an old filing cabinet system that has been left completely and utterly disorganized. So perhaps in my mind, I think of it as this old vintage series of filing cabinets. Perhaps there's 4 or 5 of them. There is paperwork everywhere. Things have been stuck in there. Everything that's ever come at my brain has just been rammed into one area. And what my brain has tried to do in order to try and file and make sense of the world is take portions of these 2 million pieces of information per second and put them into specific areas, except that filing system doesn't know what it's doing. Now, of those 2 million pieces of information, actually, consciously, we're only aware of 7 things per second. So like I talked about, right now, I'm aware of my leg, my knee's hurting just this second. I'm aware of seeing myself on camera. I'm aware that I'm using my hands to talk. I'm aware of the wobble of my earrings. So there are 7 things per every single second that we are consciously aware of. Now, at a subconscious level, we actually are storing 137 pieces of information for every single second that we experience. Now, what that means is that we have deleted nearly 2 million other pieces of information to try and get these 137 pieces into that messy filing cabinet. And that is for every single thing that you have ever experienced. It is all up there stored, but very often it's not stored in a very helpful way. So you have all sorts of information that isn't stored very well at the moment. And that's one of the things that neuro-linguistic programming does. It helps you to become aware of the words and language you are using and the images that you're thinking of that are connected to other moments of your history, moments of your memory. So the other thing I want you to know about the subconscious mind is that effectively, it is like a company organisation where there's the CEO whose prime directive is to keep you alive and keep you away from danger. That is always the mission of the CEO of your mind, your subconscious. But what happens is when you are a child and an experience happens to you, or even later on in adulthood and something traumatic happens, you have learned behaviours and they become habitual. Now, those habits are extremely useful because that means that your brain doesn't have to always be making decisions on how to react. It can become an habitual response. So, for example, as we get dressed in the morning, we don't feel that we have to, you don't have to consciously think about how to pull on trousers. You don't have to consciously think about doing up your belt or putting on your socks. They are habitual actions. The same is true for how we act in certain situations. So very often as a child, between the ages of 6 months and 7 years old, we learn behaviours and attitudes that we accept now as the norm. But they served then to protect us, but in our adult life, they really don't. And very often, these imposter syndrome pieces about feeling like a fraud, feeling that you're not good enough, feeling that actually you shouldn't step up and be seen and take the actions that you want to take, they actually are deeply rooted in childhood. Now, the amazing thing is that filing cabinet in your mind just needs reorganizing. It just needs rewiring. And some of that work is as simple as becoming aware of what you're saying, aware of what you're thinking, and deciding actually those thoughts don't work for me. One of the amazing things about our mind, and this is huge, one of the amazing things for our mind is that whatever we tell our mind, whatever we feed into our mind, becomes what you are training your subconscious to look for and to seek out more of the same for you to notice. So, for example, my story is huge, so I'm not going to go into it in too much detail, but I was disabled and depressed and feeling very, very limited and stuck for a long period of time. And I was told that I might not ever walk again. Now, my response to that was to constantly be talking about pain, about limitation, and making excuses, but in my mind they weren't excuses, they were my reality, about why I couldn't do anything, why I couldn't be happy, why I couldn't feel right. And as a result, I became very, very low. And that's what really spurred my journey into learning all of this stuff about mindset. And the biggest learning for me was about this imposter syndrome piece. So at core, I was repeating over and over again about how stuck I felt and how I couldn't have the life that I wanted. And crucially, it was around pain. Now, I was challenged to change my language. What would happen if I stopped talking about pain? And what if I started talking about the opposite? Now, for me, the opposite of pain was healing. So I went home and I said to my family, I'm no longer going to be telling you that I'm suffering in pain. All I'm going to tell you is my body is healing. And I changed my thoughts, I changed my language, I became extremely aware of what I was thinking because I was desperate and I really wanted this to work. And I had no idea at this stage that I would recover. All I knew is that I wanted to feel better. Well, what happened was that very quickly, because I was consciously changing my language and consciously aware of how often I was talking about these limiting things that made me feel bad, very quickly, I changed how I felt. I started to feel better. I started to see opportunity to recover. I started to believe that it was possible. And as a result, my mind kind of picked up on that. And I started to see much more opportunity for a better life. Now, what happened was that I had taken myself out of that habit of talking about pain, being stuck, being limited, which actually a lot of that limitation talk I had been doing for years, probably since I was 7, 8 or 9 years old. And I hadn't even noticed it was there. It was just a backdrop to everything that I was saying. I know this is deep, so I hope that you're following me. So what happened then was I became aware that I was talking a lot about my professional career, that I wasn't able to have what I wanted. And at core, I was really scared that if I did have success, if I did go after what I wanted, that I would be rejected by the people around me because I wouldn't be a good mum in other people's models of the world. I would become selfish if I was successful. And I was afraid that if I went for what I wanted properly and fully, that I wouldn't actually be good enough, and therefore I would be humiliated. And the humiliation piece then again is about that sense of belonging. So these are core beliefs. People worry about being judged, being seen, and being rejected. But at the same, so that's kind of one part of us. The other part wants to be seen, wants to be heard, wants to be remembered, wants to have a full life. So let's go back to the analogy of the CEO. So the CEO wants to keep you safe and wants to keep you alive and wants to keep you away from danger so that all of the other programs for living in your body continue. But it can't manage everything. So at moments of trauma or in your childhood where something has happened to you and your mind has kind of labelled it as, oh, I'm rejected, or I'm not good enough, or I don't belong, it's gone into this massive, dirty, messy filing cabinet. And whilst it served you as an action when you were 6 or 7, every subsequent time you've had that thought, it has actually gone into that filing cabinet and been labelled in the same way. But that what's happened to you as an adult is not the same. It's a different experience. You have just deleted 2 million pieces of information to fit your own model of belief. So we all think completely differently, which is kind of exciting when you think about it, because there is no right way to see the world. There is no wrong way to see the world. This is why when you have witnesses to an accident or a significant event, everybody could have a completely different story because they literally are processing things in a different way. That's why people see different colours. That's why people have heard different language used or voices used. So what this means for you is that you can understand that you have 2 departments. One is part of your inner critic that is holding you back, that is keeping you safe, but it's not real. It is a fabricated belief that suits a model system dating much earlier in your life, that's no longer serving your highest purpose of allowing to keep you safe, but also live the happy life that you want. So there is another department. There is another department that does want you to do the things that you want to do. And it's working out that these departments need to talk to each other. So It's about consciously realizing that it's the CEO in charge, not these departments. Okay, these departments are part of the same team, and there's a really powerful shift that you can do through NLP work that gets this to happen very quickly. You can release lots of beliefs about yourself in a matter of up to 20 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, that powerfully changes your life. Now, for me, it was this big part about not being good enough and not being included and not belonging. And once I got that out of the way, I realized that actually I knew I was a talented, capable individual. And every time I would take confident steps forward, I would actually be pulling myself back because the other department wanted me to stay safe. But that safety was a really fearful place, which isn't good for the other department and not good for the CEO of my brain. So whatever you are thinking about yourself, the sense that you're not good enough, that maybe you're a fraud, that people are going to laugh at you, they're going to judge you, all of these things, however they show up in your life, are not real. They are just your inner critic telling you a particular story to keep you pulled back. So how are you going to become aware of this, and what are you going to do about it? Well, as I talked about, you can shift what you are focusing on in your thoughts. You can shift your own language, you can shift your own beliefs by creating new neural pathways and creating new thought habits. And the way that I would love you to challenge yourself to do this in the first instance is to start journaling. And I'm going to recommend that you get 2 journals. One you're going to write in a stream of consciousness style, and the other is going to become your success journal. And I'll talk a little bit about both of those. So the stream of consciousness part is literally you writing every morning absolutely everything that comes out of your brain. And it's like a big brain dump first thing in the morning. And what you're going to write for about 3 pages. And what you're going to see over a period of time is the amount of times you criticize yourself, the amount of times you say you're rubbish at something, or you failed again, or you've completely cocked up. And you're going to become aware of that language. Now, what I do is I write that stream of consciousness. I don't go back and read the whole thing, but I very quickly highlight as I'm writing, or even simply with a biro, if I'm writing in biro, I underline the negative comment I've made about myself. Then what I do once I've done that 3 pages of stream of consciousness writing, I go back and I address each of these statements I have made. So, for example, if I were to say in my writing, I'm always rubbish at how I speak with the children. So I would reframe that. I would take that as a sentence and I would change it around. And I would say something along the lines of, I am a good and capable mother, no matter what I do. So, or I always have my children's best intentions at heart. And what that does, by writing that out, and there's something very interesting about the brain-hand coordination and how that artistic part of your mind actually likes that longhand writing rather than doing it on screen, on typing. What I tend to do then is I write that out, that statement, and I write it again and again, and I would probably write it 3 or 4 times. Now, as you're writing that statement, this new statement of intent, if you like, what you may become aware of is all sorts of resistance to that belief that you're trying to instill in yourself. Now, those blurts, if you like, those negative comments you're making about yourself are extremely informative, because they are going to show you what it is you need to be working on. So I write out all of the blurts as well as they come up, and then again I will take those blurts and twist them around and make a new positive statement. So if you do this process every single day, you are going to become aware of where in your own language you are sabotaging yourself. And once you do this written piece of work and you make it a daily habit, you will find that you become much more aware of when you go into negative moaning mood, when you're talking to people, or when you're having a conversation, or even your own thoughts. You will become aware that those thoughts are from your inner critic and that they are not actually true. The other thing that I recommend you do is start keeping a success journal. So this is where you write down all of the things that you are good at, all of your testimonials, all of the positive feedback, all of your credentials, all of the steps you have taken to become good at what you do. And this is vital. And I think particularly as women, as we have those hormonal ups and downs. So I'm very good on the mindset piece. but once a month, I can go a little bit loopy. If I have that success journal, it really is a visual reminder of everything that gives me validity, that means I am not an imposter. So what happens if you do deal with this imposter syndrome piece? Well, because you are free from fear, because you are free from the fear of rejection, from the fear of being shunned by those around you, it means you are much more at one with yourself. It means you can take confident action in the direction of your dreams, whether that's in business or in your personal life. It means you can make deeper connections. It means you're not always locked in those stories of rejection and not belonging. And it means that you can actually own the things that you are good at. You can actually step into that and not have to feel like you are a fraud. You can acknowledge what you are talented at, capable at, and naturally gifted in, because it's okay to be those things, because this work makes it safe to say, I am not an imposter, I belong and I deserve. And as a result of this work, you will start to be able to be much happier, achieve more, and feel that you're having much more success, and deserve that success, and feel that having that success is okay. So what I've provided for you alongside this training is 2 amazing pieces of content. So the first is a powerful hypnosis track. So I am, alongside all my master neurolinguistic programming work, I am also a master of hypnosis and a multi-award winning voiceover artist. That was one of the big shifts for me. Once I dealt with this fear of belonging and this imposter syndrome, I was able to go at my previous career as a voiceover artist and put myself up there in the big leagues. And I won loads of awards, and I was invited to Hollywood on the red carpet 7 or 8 times, because I stopped telling myself I didn't deserve, and I realized that I could tell a new story, get myself on a new neural pathway of thought habit that meant that I could craft the level of career and success that I wanted. So what I've put together for you is that combination of both of my skills, the mindset piece, the hypnosis piece, and the voice track. So hypnosis is totally safe. The only caveat is that if you've ever had any psychiatric disorders, you must check with your doctor first. Other than that, lie back, enjoy and relax. Listen to it when you're on your own, when you're not likely to be disturbed. But hypnosis is totally safe, and what it does is it feeds new positive affirmations and reinforcements of the things that you want in your life, without that conscious mind inner critic coming up and saying, you can't have that, you're not good enough. So the track is all about confidence, which really is what the imposter syndrome is all about. The other thing that I've provided for you, I specialise in my business and mindset coaching in helping people to get visible, to have the confidence to go out there to transform their careers. And this visibility piece is hugely important. So what I've put together for you is a visibility checklist for entrepreneurs that I think will transform your social media. And what I want to say is that it's so long, there's so much detail in there that you're not going to be able to achieve it all every day. But having that as a blueprint for what you could be doing, I think will transform the level of visibility as you are pushing yourself to get out there. And I noticed as I said that I used the word pushing. I don't want you to feel that you have to push to be seen. I want it to feel like it is easy, that it is natural, that you are confident and you are at one with getting your message out there, because you are not an imposter. You deserve to have and go after whatever it is that you want. Let's put that imposter syndrome behind us.